Hello, sisters. I'm going to give you guys a minute to catch up. Um, so wow, that was pretty long, eh? Um, I feel like I took quite a bit more little breaks than I usually do, and I said like and sorry and like had to repeat words. Like I would, what's the word in English for it? Like I would like finish the word wrong. Like I would add an s, or I would be like instead of like intelligible, I was like intelligibly or whatever. Like I kept having to like correct myself. Um, I hope it wasn't too painful to sit through, but okay. So I'm going to start by going through the comments from the last stream. Also, I'd just like to say I have like about an hour to do this. I need to be at work at 1. Let me just double fucking check before we get going. I need to be at work at 1 and it's like 11. Okay. Um so I'm going to end this in 1 hour. All right. Which I know is pretty short for one of my streams, but honestly, I might read the next essay and do the next commentary tonight. Um yeah. Yeah, it starts at 1. Okay, well. Okay. So, I'm going to go back to the chat from the last stream and okay. So, hello to everyone, Dragon, ES, etc., etc. People are like, "Did you clone Momo?" No. Okay, so this is the situation. This is Squeaky. This is Momo. This is my cat. This is my roommate's cat, who I named. Her name used to be Monkey, but then we changed it to Squeaky. She does this thing where she like goes on your shoulders and like rubs her head against your head. That's why I named her Monkey. Matt Adams says it was some heavy topics today. Yes, I did not expect her to like. I mean, I kind of this like arrogance and love thing. Hello, Dr. Bean. This arrogance and love thing. I'm thinking of Rowan Atkinson. Were you here yesterday, Dr. Bean, when we were talking about this female Canadian sketch comedian who I was like is like a better version of Rowan Atkinson? Anyway, whatever. Ocarina's like 2 cats are better than 1 cat. Yes. Um, yeah. So I was kind of expecting some I don't know, obviously some depressing stuff with this like arrogance and love, like harm and all that crap. Oh hey Lisa, you missed the essay. I mean, you can go back and listen to it, but also it was like very heavy today. But I feel like the essays are progressively challenging me in new ways as I move through the book, and I'm really really enjoying that. Squeaky and Momo sounds better than Momo and Monkey. Yeah. Mama, come. Yesterday, someone was like, "Did your cat spray the chair?" But if she's fixed, they don't do that, right? Or what? I don't know. Just I don't even know what a cat spraying is, but I've never seen her do anything. She just like pees in her litter box. Mama. Momo. Okay, so we have 1 hour. Momo on her throne. Yeah, that's her. Okay. So this is 30 pages almost exactly. We started on page 52, I think, and ended on page 82. Yeah, it's 30 pages exactly. Okay, so there was so much stuff I could spend, I'm sure, like 3 hours talking about the actual like content and concepts. Can you do a summary? Yes. Okay. So, the introduction is basically explaining male domination, that's like something universally like, visible, and that we need to have a deeper understanding of it. Yeah. Then there's like the first section of the essay, which I also love that she has like the subtitles. I don't know if she did it because she's trying to make it accessible to the laywoman, but I like it. Then the first section is called coercion. So it talks first a bit about Sartre, and like it's very visceral. Like I see a slight Dworkin peeking through in her writing here. That like a lot of people, their conception of coercion is like somebody has like physically put you in a position that you cannot move from, and anything that's not that is not really coercion. And then she goes on into like, how this is like based on like a male's perspective of like their entitlement. Like, I'm kind of using my own language, but that's basically what the kind of stuff she was saying. And that if you're seeing it from your perspective of like what you want, you're not really going to see like the harms of the victim because you don't care about them. um, and it's like, it's not even that you don't see the harms to the victim, it's that like you see that you're getting what you want and that's all that matters. um, yeah, and basically this kind of like sublimation of the woman's sense of her own desires or health or needs with the masters. Then we have an exploitation and oppression section. This she starts by explaining what is a tool. Like, the point of the tool is to change something, to accomplish something. And then she goes on to explain how, like, also, what is telos? Is that a reference to Plato? I think it's a reference. Telos. Doesn't it mean like the, no, philosophy, like the point of the thing or something? In philosophy, telos is a term used by Aristotle, the full potential or inherent purpose. Yeah. So basically, how women are convinced that their full potential and inherent purpose is to serve their masters, men. And then you might kind of be happy you missed this, Lisa, because it was quite fucking upsetting. um, then she talks about like breaking slaves and like all of this like really fucking disturbing. So like first she talks about how like we use animals as a tool. And how do we know we use the animals as a tool? Because like every aspect of their being is like to our service, right? Like domesticated animals. And then she's like, she kind of did this in the last essay. She talks about, how man, like humanity, compared to animals, we depersonalize them and dehumanize them, right? And then she makes that example, and then she's like, look how the men treat the women. It's the same thing. So she does the same thing here. She says, look, humanity has molded these animals to our needs. And these are all the ways that we know that they're doing it, and we can see that they're doing it. And then she says, look, humanity, they have molded women to their needs. Um, I found it quite like, I don't know, expressive. I like very, when you get into philosophy, you're always having this thought of like, oh no, is it gonna be like trying to understand like who did I have trouble understanding? Um who's that guy? Whatever. The really super religious Swedish guy or whatever. And then or like Butler or something. But like this book, she uses like big terminology and like, but she explains her concepts, like, both she explains the concept with, like, really long phrases, the big terminology, and then she gives you, like, a real world example that makes it, like, really in your face what it is she's telling you, and it's fucking great. Yes, Lisa. Lisa says women are like the scaffolding that hold up this man's world, honestly. Completely freaking agree. Okay. So, yes, she explains this. Um Then she, like, all of this stuff is building. Kierkegaard, fucking thank you, Uta. Amazing. That is who I meant. I meant Kierkegaard. I just remember the first time I read Kierkegaard, I was like, "What's going on?" like, um, because at that point I was so confident in my like reading abilities and my like reading comprehension and all that. Like, I'm like intellectually disabled, like literally intellectually disabled, but my language skills are like off the fucking chart. And so when I read Kierkegaard, I was like disappointed in myself. I was like, so what? I'm stupid. Turns out philosophers are really full of a lot of shit though. Okay. Great. So, what was this? The potential or inherent purpose. Yeah. This entire essay is basically about the telos of women. It's about conditioning women to think that their purpose or their potential can only be reached by fulfilling the wants and desires of men because we have been fucking brainwashed by these assholes. um Uja's like, I think he remains single. No, but wasn't he Didn't he have like a vow of celibacy or whatever? Or like he interpreted the Bible to such an extent that any and all sex is like against God or some crazy shit. Um, um, but yeah, I take your meaning, Ut. um, Lisa says, I know that feeling exactly usually means you are reading someone who sucks at writing. It is not that you're stupid. Really smart and good writers can convey their ideas simply. Yeah, it's like, okay, not to compare things to men, even though we're already fucking doing that apparently, my bad. But like it's like Einstein said, if you can't explain it to a 5-year-old, you don't know what you're fucking talking about. And especially in feminism, like this I don't know what her thought process was, but I think this book is quite accessible. Like my highest tier of education is like 2 years of university and I can read it. Like I think somebody who just has a high school degree could like graduate could probably understand this stuff. So I like that. Yeah. Ucha says you must be so brilliant if you figured out the philosophers are full of shit. Well, not all philosophers. Like we like Mary Daly, don't we? Um, who was that other feminist? It was like a nihilist who wasn't Mary Daly. Whatever. Okay, whatever. Let's keep moving on. So, yeah, then she reaffirms a previous concept that she posits in a past essay, which is that, to force a class of people or physical beings into servitude is like quite a lot of resources and energy. Better off to brainwash them that they're supposed to do that shit themselves. Much more efficient. Um, then she talks about how dissolving the self. So if the person, not the person, if the woman feels that her sense of self, her sense of health, her sense of desire, her sense of need, this is also something I was kind of mentioning in the last couple days, like when I was talking about teenage girl sexuality, how they don't actually know what it is they want or what it is they don't want, or if they know what it is they want or don't want, they don't feel that's like relevant to like any sexual situation they enter, right? Um, because it's been so completely sublimated by the man's desires and needs and wants and blah blah blah. She talks about that, how it's like a brainwashing. This is a big part of the problem. The next section is called enslavement. This is very brutal. She so first she talks about she mentions a few books. So let's name the books here. Kathleen Berry has a book called Female Sexual Slavery. Um oh no, the other books in the other section. Okay, whatever. So I'll list off the other books when I get there. But so first she talks about like, obviously black slavery in America. And she says like some people think that this is kind of like a bad example or is like a disrespectful analogy to just to explain womanhood in society. And she kind of is like, not kind of, she's like, yeah, that's fair enough. But I think it's a perfect analogy to explain okay, well, I don't know what word she uses, but basically like women being prostituted and sex trafficked. She's like, because it's like the same fucking thing. So, um, So she discusses, according to this Kathleen Berry and her book, "Female Sexual Slavery." Let's just read this little phrase here. According to Berry, the strategy for converting a half-grown willful girl or reasonably independent and competent woman to a servile prostitute or a passive concubine has 3 stages: abduction, seasoning, and criminalization. So abduction basically is like removing her from any of her supports or resources and putting her like in a position of vulnerability and isolation. That's abduction. Then the next stage is seasoning. The seasoning is basically to torture her to the point where when you stop torturing her, she thinks that you're doing something nice for her because you stopped hurting her. And so now she's in a state where at any time that the what is the phrase? What is the term that she uses here? The procurer, that at any time the procurer or the man with his arrogant eye stops torturing her, she's like, wow, thanks so much. You're like protecting me because you're not currently torturing me. That is the seasoning. And then the criminalization is kind of like, to me, like the last step in the isolation process. Up to this point, there was like a potentiality that she could go to some kind of an institution for support, right? Or could go back to her family for support, right? But no, once the criminalization happens, now she cannot go to her family or the police or any institution for support because she is now like outside of like in the underworld of society. So the only people she can turn to are the other underworld people. And who is the underworld person that she views as her protector because he stopped torturing her? Her pimp. So, yep, she explains all that shit. Um, then she says, let us review the metaphysics of this process. And so she explains kind of what I've been saying here. So, through this process, the woman has learned that it's in her self interest to give him what he wants, or else she will face very tangible repercussions, right? And so he has now replaced her own self interest with his self interest because it's now in her self interest to give him what he wants, and her actual desires or needs or whatever are completely irrelevant to any of it because he is the person in a position of power at all times. That's basically how I get it. And so she talks about how this psychological process, you can observe it in women at large in society who haven't been through this like specific like conditioning for sex trafficking kind of thing. Um okay. Who else does she mention here? Okay, she mentions Mary Daly's the term robotitude, de Beauvoir's only not dying, and then she mentions okay, is it Tigray or Tigray? Someone please tell me. Is it I always thought it was Tigray Atkinson, but maybe it's Tigray Atkinson. Cuz what is Ty short for? I used to know this. Fuck, I can't remember. Whatever. Yeah, then she mentions Tigray Atkinson's term metaphysical cannibalism, which I think is the most accurate in describing you think it's T. Okay, thank you, Michelle. Or Lisa, sorry, whatever. Okay. Then the arrogant eye. The arrogant eye is kind of in my for so whoever was here yesterday, they heard the term fallism, and fallism is kind of like not kind of her my understanding of the term fallism as she describes it in the last essay is the basic understanding of it's like they're all built together like I love this shit. Okay, so in the oppression essay, no, in the sexism essay, she talks about how when you see a man, the first thing you notice about him is that he's a man. And because the first thing you notice about him is a man, the first thing you inherently associate with him is personhood. And when you see a woman, the first thing you notice about her is she's a woman. And the first thing you associate with her is not having personhood. And so, right. So, fallism is the essential belief and action upon the belief that men have personhood and women don't have personhood. So to me, the arrogant eye is kind of a combination of fallism and male entitlement, because what she's talking about is like so with the fallism construct came the idea that like men are like gods of their own perception and their own world, right? And that it's not just in their imaginations, like people take that shit seriously, so they actually do have power with that. Here with the arrogant eye, she is saying they're the gods of their own world. Um and they view women as tools to their service as a part of their perspective. So it's kind of like fallism, male entitlement, and like aspects of toxic masculinity all rolled into one. This arrogant eye idea, and I really like it. Oh, and okay, actually, I think the best analogy to explain the arrogant eye, I don't know how I forgot this because I was thinking about it while I was reading it, is manifest destiny. It's basically men's manifest destiny. Right. Am I using that word right? I haven't used it since like grade 9, like geography or whatever, history or something. But it's like the idea that you are entitled and it is your God-given right to own and use this resource. But the resource in question is women. Um okay. Um Uta says male capture involves misunderstanding of women's sensuality and exploitation of it. I pose that it is about male sexual response, the need for stimulation to maintain an erection, and men's insecurity about staying hard. Sorry to be so graphic, dears. No, it's okay. You can be graphic. Yes. So I also think it's their insecurity, but I would postulate it in a more philosophical sense than the physical sense. I understand what you're saying, and agree with you, but I would phrase it as men view themselves as gods of their dominion, right? That their perception is reality because they are like godlike in their self uh, self understanding, and that to be a god you must have control, but they don't have control. So in their insecurity over not actually having the control that they think they're supposed to have, they must exert the control to make it a reality. So like that's an essentially insecurity, right? That's an essential insecurity. I need to have power. I don't have the power. I need to exert the power to reaffirm that I'm supposed to have the power. Like it's all about insecurity. Um, Ocarina says, I need to buy this essay because two of the terms are running theme in my current body of work. I feel as if I am working from a text slash train of thought which I did not know exists. Weird art thing. Yeah, I freaking love books, right? Dragon, where are you seeing Helen Joyce get pissed off on Twitter? Bean says, this is reminding me of the film Mother. Interesting. Oh, there's some other fantasy that she like. Well, she referenced them as like fantasy where women try to put themselves in men's shoes as like a vehicle to escape oppression, and she's like, that's not right. But I still kind of want to read them. Like if they were popular and they were written by feminists and they're female centric, I probably still would enjoy them. um, Uta says, but when men are naked, they have this vulnerability, quote unquote. Clothes make the man. Oh, Helen is doing a debate with Grace Lavery. Is that today? What's the date today? Oh my god, I thought that was next weekend. I wanted. Oh, I didn't buy the ticket though. Can you watch it for free? I assume we'll be able to find it for free later, but okay. Dragon says she's usually very measured, so it's a treasure. It's a treat when she gets pissed off. Yeah, I think it would be because she is very intelligent and articulate. So I can't imagine. A bird killed me says who gets paid for the debate. Honestly, I feel like it's probably mostly unheard. Um, have they hosted a debate like this before? I feel like they're trying to like exploit. Excuse me. They're trying to expand their platform. Okay, sorry. I'm gonna ignore you guys and get through this. We are halfway through the essay at this point in my summary. Okay. So, the arrogant I. Yes. Everything is for me or against me. Everything revolves around me. Narcissism, narcissism, blah blah blah. Um, Then she talks again about something. It's like she's reaffirming a concept that she proposed in a previous essay, which is that, like, men expecting something to be one way kind of bring it into being by behaving in a way that makes it happen. And so this is like proof that they are a god to themselves. Um, yeah, and that he is so arrogant that he thinks that when the woman is doing something for his needs and wants and desires and whatever, that this is in her own self interest. She's doing it for herself because he's so fucking self centered. Um, oh, then she talks about this philosophical concept of the intelligibility of the universe, which is basically that, okay, so things need to be. There's this concept that humans are capable of understanding the universe. And from this concept comes the further concept that the things that we know, the things that are most likely are the things that are the most simple. So if we understand the universe and the universe needs to be simple enough for us to understand it, it makes it kind of like our image of what the universe is supposed to be is how we interpret the reality of the universe. Is kind of what I'm getting from this. Maybe I'm like misrepresenting what her intention was, but this is kind of a great example in her estimation of this problem of like if the universe needs to be something intelligible, then you will like superimpose what you understand as what the universe is, and that this is like a great example of what men do as the gods of their own little worlds. Um She references Mary Daly's reversals of how like healthy and unhealthy and right and wrong, and so how the man can convince you that what's right or what's good for you is actually what's bad for you because it's right or what's good for him. Um, I'm just gonna read this paragraph one more time. Uh, no, but Dragon, you have to pay to watch the debate. I think it's like you have to pay £5 British. Excuse me. To become a member, and if you're a member of Unheard, then you can like stream it for free or something. Anyway, okay, I'm gonna read you this paragraph. The official story about men who batter women is that they do so in large part because they suffer from quote unquote low self esteem. What this suggests to me is that they suffer from a lack of arrogance and cannot fully believe in themselves as centers about which all else but some other men revolves and to which all else refers. Because of this, they cannot effectively exercise the power of that expectation. But as men, they quote unquote know they are supposed to be centers of the universe. So they are reduced to trying to create by force that which more successful men who carry off masculinity better, create by arrogant perception. That this is perhaps one reason why some of the men who do not batter have contempt for the men who do. Thank you. Um, oh, thank you, Dr. Bean. Thank you. Bean is like, Benji, you just described liberal feminism convincing women what is good for them, but what is actually bad for them and is good for men. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So then the next section is the loving eye. So basically, she is describing the psychology of this like female enslavement, and there's like it's kind of it's a bit Marxist. Um, the oppressor class, the arrogant eye, and the oppressed class, the loving eye. So the loving eye is the description of kind of the women's experience of what she's been describing so far. So it's basically about how you need to keep seeing good intentions in the asshole men, and you need to keep presuming that they are like for your sanity, you how you interpret this situation. Um and so she talks about how um you know, when a woman has been conditioned to serve a man, if the woman ever shows signs of prioritizing herself, the man will view this as disrespect and not loving him enough. Then yeah, she talks about how like we are conditioned to view love as women are conditioned to view love as like selflessness. And so basically like self-destruction is like a virtue among women according to men. And it's like we are told that this is to our benefit when like very very obviously it's to our detriment. Um And then she goes on to talk about how it's viewed as selflessness to sacrifice for the master. But actually, it's not entirely selfless because it's self-preservation to give the master what he wants, right? Um like she brings up wife battering and domestic murder. This um and then she mentions how the loving eye, the woman, is constantly self-monitoring, is constantly observing the master, is constantly hyper aware. And like to me who has PTSD from childhood, like when I moved into the dorm at my university, when I moved away from my parents, um, this thing kept happening because it was like all cinder blocks, the building, and so when the doors opened and closed, it was really loud. Um, and I just remember like so many times being like lying in my bed at night. I lived like in my own room by myself and hearing a door slam in the hallway and like sitting up and being like, "What's going on?" And it wasn't until then that I realized that 100% of the time that I am in any room with people or like a house or something, I am constantly aware, which room are they in? What mood are they in? What are they doing? And so when I was in this situation where I was constantly in a situation where I didn't know who was doing what and what was happening around me, because it's like a cinder block building with elevators and I don't really know the people who live around me, then I suddenly was like aware that I didn't have this knowledge that I usually have. So it's like there's some part of my brain which is always turned on, which always knows who is in the house, what are their mood are they in, what are they doing. And as soon as I couldn't do that, I realized that's what I'm always doing. Anyway, so in this section here where she describes women constantly being self-aware, aware of what the other person, the man is doing, what does he want, what do I want, what am I capable of giving up, what am I capable, like which compromises can I make for survival. Like when she talked about that, I was just like, wow, I really relate. I related to that quite a bit. Then she talks about okay, I'm just gonna read you the last like paragraph of the loving eye section. Sorry, is it the loving eye or just the beloved or the lover? The loving eye, yeah. Okay. Um the loving eye does not make the object of perception into something edible, does not try to assimilate it, does not try to reduce it in size to the size of the seer's desire, fear, or imagination, does not have to simplify it. Oh yeah, this she also brings up this concept of simplification. So basically, that in men's worldview, since everything is about power and power is quite simple, it's like either I have the power or you have the power. I mean, this is my interpretation of what she has said. Um, how men force the world into some simplistic thing because knowledge is power, and if something is simple, then it's knowable to them, and thus they feel they have power. Women don't do this. Women don't feel they need to have knowledge of everything and need to have power over everything. So women are more um okay with things being complex and unknowable and like for it to be a possibility that you're constantly learning new things. So because women are open to complexity and men are not, women are capable of understanding like my needs, his needs, like the differences in things, and that men try and simplify everything into like a 2D model that fits their worldview. Um, it knows the complexity of others as something which will forever present new things to be known. The science of the loving eye would favor the complexity theory of truth and presupposes the endless interestingness of the universe. The loving eye seems generous to its object, though it means neither to give nor to take, for not being invaded, not being coerced, not being annexed must be felt in a world such as ours as a great gift. Okay, then the last section, I think is the last section. Maybe not, it's quite a few pages left. I think this is the last section. The beloved. So, um, this section is supposed to be, so she kind of mentioned like men in patriarchy, women in patriarchy. This section is kind of like, let's imagine what womanhood could be like without patriarchy. Um and so here's where she talks about uh you know, the powers that keep women in society in these situations, um and how a big part of that is our ability to not like imagine, or she conflates having courage with imagining this better society. And she basically is criticizing a lot of women who view liberation as basically them reversing positions with men. And she says, this is the wrong way to look at things. That is not any kind of solution to anything. Um, and this section is also about what does true female independence look like? like as independence as a separate concept from being dominated or subordinated. Um, let's see some of the books she mentions. So something so this kind of oh, she also doesn't like this idea that women have of like that once we get rid of patriarchy everything will be perfect and amazing, and it's like because women are like in harmony with nature and blah blah blah. She views this as like romanticism, and that is not reality based enough. That basically radical feminists have this romantic notion of like womanhood as like this like harmonious sisterhood and like a sisterhood with nature and everything, that they have created this as a kind of fantasy of like what could be awesome, because it's easier to imagine this fantasy than to figure out what a like more practical and realistic liberation will look like. And she basically says that, not basically, she literally says if you can't imagine a better society, a better world, right, how are you going to get there? If you can't imagine it, you can't get there. So she's saying that, indulging in these romantic notions is detrimental to radical feminism. And she mentions a couple different books. So she mentions Mary Daly's Gynecology falls into this in some parts. Susan Griffin's Women and Nature falls into this. Um, and she says it's also present in a lot of women's literature and art. She mentions The Wonderground, um, Walk to the End of the World, and Mother Lines. These are all books that she mentions that exhibit this characteristic. And so she's basically criticizing liberal feminism and saying, like equality is not liberation. That's not what we want. Um, okay, then she talks about how women so if men are the gods of what's real and what matters, right? And men's desires are what matters and women's desires are not what matters. If men's contribution is what matters and women's contribution doesn't matter. That there's all of these different women throughout history. She mentions Simone de Beauvoir, and she mentions okay, well, whoever the fuck else she mentioned, I didn't recognize their names. A couple different women. And says like, they were trying to be seen as legitimate by men. That she knows lesbian feminist uh academics who are seeking um praise and legitimacy from men, and she is like, this is a wrong way of looking at it. If you think that men's understanding of the world is based on their phallism and male capture and all this stuff, right? um the arrogant eye, why are you trying to fit your like beloved, I guess, is like the alternative to the arrogant and the loving eye. If you're trying to fit your like beloved perspective into that and get them to take it seriously, she's like, that it doesn't make any sense. That you're lacking in the follow through of your convictions. Um yeah, meaning is the term she uses. That these women, they need men, they need their works to be affirmed by the male institution for them to think it has true meaning. And she's like, but if you're critical of the male institution, you shouldn't want their affirmation. Um, and so this is more about the being independent. Um, okay, I'm just gonna read the last paragraph of the end of the essay, and then I'm gonna go into some new stuff. Okay. The liberated woman cannot be pressured to quote unquote suit us, and such presumption will simply keep us from actually imagining her free. For in our own effort of imagination, we impose upon her. We feed our vision on images filtered through what we suppose to be our own necessity. We will be disappointed and resentful and will end up doing violence. We need to know women as independent, subjectively in our own things, in our own beings, and in our appreciation of others. If we are to know it in ourselves, I think we may have to be under the gaze of a loving eye, the eye which pre presupposes our independence. The loving eye does not prohibit a woman's experiencing the world directly, does not force her to experience it by way of the interested interpretations of the seer in whose visual field she moves. In this situation, she can experience directly in her bones the contingent character of her relations to all others and to nature. If we are to know women's independence in the beings of others, I think we may have to cast a loving eye toward them and wait and see. So basically, she is like, oh, hi, Cyber. Basically, she is like, we are not going to reach freedom by exerting control over others. Which is like, pretty understandable position to have. I have to leave in 25 minutes, so I have time to shower before I go to work. Yeah. Honestly, I might do the next essay tonight. It's only 10 pages long. I feel like this like discussion is pretty short. So I might, yeah. Okay, I'm gonna go back and read some of what you guys said. Okay. Um, okay. Mad Adam says that's why when men retort, women can't understand men experiences. Women say men can't understand women's experiences. I get frustrated. Men don't have to constantly analyze women's motivations for survival like women do. Yeah, exactly. Very, very much agree. Dr. Bean says, this reminds me of some of the literature I've read about how mothers are expected to give themselves unconditionally and unselfishly for the sake of children. It is the same with men generally. Um, Uta says women know stages of our biological life childhood, fertility, menopause. We keep hoping it will improve. Yeah. Or that the fact that we're in one of those stages like determines our value or our lack of value to society. Or the I think women hope that, by the time I reach that stage, like the fertility stage, I won't be in the position of experiencing pressure to procreate, or by the time in the menopause stage, hopefully society will be past the point where women are valued only for their like fertility, and so I won't be treated with disrespect because I'm no longer like women hope to escape that shit, but like no, that's the way the fucking men are, and obviously the women who've bought into the male capture, as Uta would phrase it. Dr. Bean says women are scolded for putting their own comfort ahead of others, and then we are expected to be grateful for really small things that are below what should even be the bare minimum. Yeah, exactly. This is like the concept that she terms enslavement in the essay. Basically, I mean, you can kind of see this in like a girl's lifetime, right? Like when they're young, we know this. Women are expected to, or little girls are expected to materially support the home, right? Whether this is in doing more chores than their male counterparts, whether this is doing things to take care of dad when you're very little, like women are conditioned from day one that other people's comfort, the male's comforts are more important than yours, that anybody's needs or desires are more important than yours. Um, and so anytime someone turns around and says, "What do you need? What do you want?" Well, obviously that person is being a fucking angel, right? Yes. Um, yeah. Uh, then some of you guys are talking about menopause. Uta says every man I went with and then broke up with was schooled in the charm school of Uta. I saw them do better in the next relationship. Um, Beansprout says, first time I heard Jermaine Greer say that thing about equality, we don't want equality because we don't want to be men. We want to be treated as ourselves. It hit me like a ton of bricks. Yeah. Um, it just cemented so many things in my mind that I had struggled to articulate before then. Um, Book Passages by Gail Sheehan. I don't know this book. Beansprout says is what strikes me is that little girls are called quote unquote bossy boots, but boys are called quote unquote assertive. I hate the difference in language used to describe the same behavior. That has always stuck with me, even as an adult. Yes. And it's like when little girls are being bossy, what are they being bossy about? They're being like, I don't like this. Or like, we're supposed to share the toys and he's not sharing the toys or something. Like, a lot of the time when you see little girls being bossy, it's like that's what you're seeing. And it's like if a fucking boy, I don't know. Like I can observe this in my neighbors. They have a bunch of kids and when I see them playing outside, like literally the boy will do one thing, like being an asshole. And then one of the girls will be like, we're supposed to share the toy or whatever, and the dad will come out and be like, be nice to your brother. I'm just like, what? Um um Lisa says, I watched some homemaker vlogs and there are some women who seem to genuinely enjoy it. Like, I don't get it. Yeah. Lisa says, is it brainwashing slash cognitive dissonance or what? Yeah, I think it's like genuinely brainwashing. I mean, I think it's like, I think what you're talking about, these kind of homemaker vlogs, they're very like, traditional Christian types, right? Who are all like, my work for my family is like my work is for my family, for my wife, for my husband and my children. And like through serving my husband and my children, I'm serving God and like all this bullshit. And to understand, I think sometimes when we're looking in our own backyard, it's harder to really understand the depth of it. And I think that if you instead look at a Muslim woman with the same mentality, you will more clearly be able to see the brainwashing. Um, yeah. Um, yeah, it's brainwashing. Dorkin, is it Dorkin? Yeah, Dorkin talks about this. How in right wing women, I think, pretty sure, but whatever. There's this radical feminist concept that women are at a constant threat of potentially being victimized. So they saw their moms getting victimized by their dads or men generally, and then they saw their mom sometimes getting protection from their dads or men generally. So how they interpret this is that, well, to be safe, I need a man to protect me. I just need to find the right man who won't exploit his authority and power over me. And so they think that they're just going to do better than their moms. Like their mom was stupid and picked the wrong guy, but like this is the solution to the problem and they're just going to do a better job than their mother did. And they view it as kind of striking a bargain because these trad wife types that you're talking about, they really, really view it as like, the husband goes to work and makes the money, and I stay at home and I make myself beautiful and I make him a beautiful dinner, and like that's my fulfilling work. And like, it's like a partnership. Like we support each other and blah blah blah. Like they really view it as striking a deal. Um, I mean, that's at least how I um And so the reason I say like imagine the same a woman with the same mentality in a fundamentalist Islamic country, it's like, well, one of them you can clearly you could be like, well, she had options. Why did she choose that? One of them you say she doesn't have options. I can see why she chose that. And I think both of them are in the same mindset. Um, like one of them is in like a prison where society and the laws of the country force her into that prison, and the other one is in a prison of her own self-perception. The end result is similar, right? Anyway, Uta says I grew up in a family of sisters, saw my parents worship their sons-in-law. Oh yeah. Radical Rambling says I wonder too, Lisa, because some women say stuff like I was born to be a mom, and I'm like that's depressing as fuck. Yeah. Cuz to me what's depressing about that statement is not like, giving birth and all that. Obviously, that shit is awesome and do that, but well, whatever. Okay, a discussion for another time. But when I hear women say that, what I'm hearing them actually say is that I was put on this earth to self-sacrifice to the point of like existing for someone else. This is not like a commentary on all motherhood or all mothers, but like that is not a healthy perspective to have. Have you seen these women on Reddit? Once in a while, there'll be a thread on Reddit that's like people who regret having kids, like tell us your story. And so many women will be like, well, like my mother said she got fulfillment out of raising children. And, like I come from this background. So, like, I wanted to have a big bunch of kids. So I did the thing that she did. And I have discovered that actually self sacrificing for most of your lifetime is not a recipe for happiness and fulfillment and is actually very depressing. And they're like, I wish I would have understood this before I went and had my kids. Um, yeah, that's when I hear women saying, like, I was born to be a mother, I'm hearing them say, that is my ideal, to be put in this position, which is like, will suck all of my time and energy from and resources from me to the point that I do nothing for myself or my own happiness. And I'm like, that is not, if that is your optimal goal in life, that's pretty fucking sad. Um, like mothers are good and everything, but you deserve your own happiness, your own space, your own like all that crap. Lisa says, exactly. Women's default state is a state of self sacrifice, and it's gross. Self sacrifice shouldn't be put on a pedestal. Put your oxygen mask on first. Exactly. Radical Rambling says, that's not a commentary on all mothers, is what I just said a second ago. And yet, many who are will take this as direct and specific attack on them specifically slash individually. Well, this is like the other day, well, it was like last weekend, we talked a little bit about being anti-marriage and heterosexual sex critical, and how, when you're discussing these things immediately, um women will think, oh, that must be about me, and you're specifically attacking me, and I don't like that. And I'm like, no, you need to remove yourself from the situation, think about like, your analysis of the situation. And then after you have analyzed it, then think, how does this apply to me? How does this not apply to me? Am I playing into this? Am I against this? Like, that kind of stuff after. Um, for example, with myself, some people will be like, you're basically a TRA, which is like funny, because you're a lesbian and you're like, you have like colored hair and like blah, 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 queer things. And I am like, instead of taking it personally and being like, but what? I don't do that. I'm like, okay, what are they basing that on? What are they trying to say to me? Okay, now that I understand what they're saying, I can actually reflect what does that have to do with me and my actions and my life, right? Okay. Um Dr. Bean says yes, have children, but that should not be your whole identity. I really dislike the way that it's frowned upon for women to talk about the resent or difficulty of having children. Um Oh, Karina, I'm a child-free trad mom, lols. Mary says, my best friend is a mother of four, and she hasn't slept since her 4-year-old was born. She also has a 1-year-old now. Them and the 9-year-old sleep in her room. She never gets a break. Like, doesn't that sound depressing to have, like, to be in that position, for, like, until your youngest child moves out of the house, which also I don't wasn't really we have 10 minutes left till I need to go. I wasn't really expecting the conversation to go in this direction. I don't feel equipped, but I will just throw out some of my thoughts. Like, in my generation, it's pretty unusual that kids move out before the end of university. Or if they do, it's a huge financial burden to their parents, right? Just, with the way the economy is and everything. Um so we a lot of people think, "Oh, motherhood, that ends when the kid's 18." No, it doesn't. How many fucking men did I go to high school with who live with their parents and their mom still changes their bed, their mom still makes their clothes? How old are they? They're 25. Something else, even if your kid moves out and has a job and a scholarship, probably the parents are still financially supporting them in some way, like car insurance or student loans or something like that, right? So like you're talking about the mother never gets a break, right? So imagine from the mom's perspective, oh, the kid has moved out. Now I'm going to have time to myself. I'm going to have energy to spend on myself. I can worry about my own happiness. I can prioritize my own well being for the first time ever. No, you have to keep working. You need to pay their student loans and stuff. Or now you're trying to do things to prioritize yourself. Oh, mom, you can't do XYZ. I expected you to be here to do XYZ. Like, I don't know. I'm just saying. So it's like people, when they hear that situation, they'll be like, oh, well, it's just till the youngest kid turns 18. No, it isn't. Like, motherhood is a lifelong sacrifice. Um, and I think a lot of women were conned into it by being fed this idea that your kids are only your kids until they're an adult. Like, and also like your emotional connection to them. Obviously, it doesn't just like when they're adults. Um, Mary J- um, Mary Janer says she says her life is like trying to dry the ocean. Like, wouldn't wasn't that seem like depressing and frustrating? Um, Soph says, I've met married women with kids who say they ruin their lives. Those are quote unquote jokes, but I mean, jokes have some truth. I think many women don't think about the sacrifice. They only think about having a mini me or a pet or a plaything. And yes, I say that, but I want a kid. Probably won't give birth, just saying. Like, I think it's also a kind of microcosm of the family if you think about it. So, women are taught that what power is what men have, right? What do men have? They have dominion over the family. Primarily, they exert their dominion over the mother, and the mother exerts her power over the child. It's kind of like a chain because, that's obviously the actual child rearing. He's too cool for that. It's ridiculous that you expect him to do anything. So the wife's supposed to do it. So the wife sees the husband having control over the woman and says, oh, this is power. I want to have some power. If I have a child and I have power over the child, then I will have my own power. And it's like, that's unhealthy for everyone. And that's not really how that works. Like, it's all false, right? Um, like the whole thing is fucked up. But what you're saying, I've kind of observed a similar thing. Um, Cyber says I emancipated at 19. Very interesting. Mary says, I have a 72-year-old friend whose daughter in law and grandchildren will take refuse to her house from her own abusive son. Oh, refuse at her house from her own abusive son. Once you become a mother, you never stop being a mom. Yeah, exactly. Um, like I have a family member who still lives with his mom, and now it's become a situation of like he is disabled and will never he's not gonna it's degenerative, so he is stuck with her. But it's like he is exactly 10 years older than me, so he's 35, and he has never lived on his own. He has never financially supported himself. Whenever he's had a job, the money he got was like for his leisure stuff, and he was entirely financially dependent on his mother. And his mother now is like, retired and wanting to like relax. And she literally told me point blank, I want to like get a new boyfriend, and I don't want to have to worry about what's going on with my son, and does he like the boyfriend and all of this blah 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 stuff with my son. And I'm like, your son has been dependent on you for his entire life, and now he's disabled. You're stuck with him. Like, this is what it is to be. And I feel bad for her, cuz clearly in her mind she was like, once my kids are old enough, I don't need to be prioritizing them at all times. Like, she can't go on vacation. Like it's had such a huge effect on her life that she is like his one and only caretaker, and he is entirely dependent on her. Um and his perspective on it is completely entitled, right? I don't know. Anyway, okay. Oh no, I folded one of the pages. Also, I keep doing this thing with the book. I've never read a book this skinny before. Well, it's been maybe since high school, but I feel like if the pages are not flat, I can just put a heavy book on it. Or am I destroying my book? I don't know. Um, and she's like in so much denial about it. Like, she lives in Canada, and she's like, oh yeah, we'll just like sign him up for disability and like sign him up for like government housing. And I'm like, the wait list where you live for government housing is 8 years, and you're not even on the wait list. And do you understand what your son's lifestyle is like? Like, the maximum you can get for disability in Ontario, maybe Dragon, if you're still here, you can correct me, but I think the maximum you can get from disability in Ontario is 1,400 a month. And that's if they have added in like, oh, you need transportation, special transportation money, and you need like special diet money and all kinds of shit like that. So like, his lifestyle is not conducive to living on that amount of money. And I'm like, she is in so much denial because she is like, I can't fucking do this anymore because I'm like old and I want to fucking retire. Um, like, I think she would have been able to retire sooner if she didn't have to financially support him for his entire fucking life. Um, Radical Rambling says I'm in Alberta, and disability is 1588. That's the highest I've heard of. Is Alberta probably has the highest disability payments than that? Dragon says I get less than that. Yeah, isn't the average in Ontario like 11 or 1,200 for disability a month? Um, yeah. Anyway, she is very much in denial because I don't think she can accept that she is fucking stuck with him forever now. Um, and it's so fucked because it's like, how is she supposed to get out of that situation? By dumping it on another woman, probably. Yogi says I even made my husband get the snip so I could stop taking birth control. Imagine if that was the norm. Imagine if all men had the snip so that women as a whole wouldn't have to be on fucking horrible drugs that fuck our bodies. Mary Jane says better than the 700 you get in the States. Is that 700 including the rent? Dragon said around 1100, yeah. Anyway, she is very they live in the greater Toronto area. Even things within 2 hours of Toronto, the cost of living is insane. Um like there's no way. It's not. Oh my gosh, really? Lisa says the most common form of birth control in America is women getting sterilization surgery. It's very interesting. I had no idea. Yogi says I have no idea. I had no idea how much birth control messed with me until I stopped it. But this is like, it's the same thing we're talking about. Women are expected to be self-sacrificing and bear the brunt of um like, in any birth control situation, someone has to sacrifice something. Whether it's men putting on a fucking condom and sacrificing feeling. Ooh, like, fuck, I can't even. or it's women sacrificing their fucking mental health to be on, like, oral birth control. Someone is sacrificing something. Well, obviously, the man is not supposed to sacrifice anything. The entire purpose of sex in his mind is to his pleasure and his service. So, why would he sacrifice something for that? It's supposed to be good for him. Ocarina says, Benji, are you working this afternoon? When is the next reading? Okay, it is now 12 o'clock exactly. I start work in 1 hour and I need to have a shower. So I'm ending the stream now. Let us do some housekeeping before we end the stream, okay? Um, oh my god, Dragon. Every time you talk about your relationship with your mother, it's like some traumatic bullshit. Jesus Christ. Um, um, don't worry. I'm not gonna be late or anything. I'm good. I'm good. Okay, so let's close up everything. Okay. So I was thinking the next essay is only 10 pages. I am only working 4 hours today. Well, 4.5 hours, which is a very short shift. At 3 a.m. Well, if you stayed up to listen to me, human animal, I'm very flattered. No, don't be sorry, a dragon. I just mean it's like in demonstrative of like generational female trauma. Okay. Um, So I think what I'm going to do, I don't know if I will have time to schedule them properly. No, you know what? I'm definitely going to schedule two readings tonight. Whether they will have descriptions or thumbnails, they probably will not, but they will be there. I'm going to read the next essay tonight and do another live stream tonight of the next essay. Um, I am telling you that it will tentatively be at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but look on my YouTube channel for notifications. Tomorrow I'm doing the Benji Soapbox live stream at noon. Um, and by the end of tomorrow night, and or 100% by the end of Monday, I will have my schedule for next weekend of like the streaming and stuff. Um, okay. Oh my god. All you guys except one of well, Mary says it's good, but the rest of you are saying the depot is horrific. I've heard the depot is horrible. Ocarina says, have a great day, Benji. Thanks for this essay. Hey, you should take care of your voice, doll. Drink a lot of water, and maybe even have a cup of tea with honey today. Do you have a humidifier? Yes, I do. Aqua, your commentary is always funny. Oh, thanks so much, Lisa. I'm so flattered. Um, yeah. So, I mean, let's say I'll see you guys back here in like 5-ish hours, or I'll be here in like 5-ish hours again. Okay. All right. Have a great day, guys. If I don't see you again, have a great weekend. Okay. Bye.